I was thinking it would just be a bit too loud in there.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah, you've got to think about interference and stuff.
Yeah.
So, can you tell me a bit more about your project again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's I'm trying to create like what I'm calling like an audio-visual object, like some kind of like film type thing. Yeah, no, go for it. Which like has like audio stuff, which would be like interviews, and then visual images, clips of things that I've taken, things that other people have taken, kind of merged into a kind of collage of stuff around the theme of politics, what politics means for people, how they engage with politics, what your approaches are, what motivates you to do those kind of things.
But politics in context of geography, or?
Not necessarily. Kind of. I guess I'm kind of wanting it to be quite open. I guess the geographical aspects, like within the wider context of the world. Where is it that you place yourself within that? And what is it you're trying to do within that context to create changes, bring about different stuff? Yeah.
Guys, do you mind if I pinch your lighter? Thanks.
I suppose I became interested in anti-advertising issues around the time I've been politicised by the alter-globalisation movement in 2000, roughly. What is interesting about working on advertising is it's very intersectional, so you can talk about a lot of issues at once, and you can situate those issues, those quite broad political issues, consumerism, gender and body image, sexism, environmental resource extraction and exploitation, the nature of like working to accumulate income to buy things to express ourselves that consumerism encourages, and then what happens when you feed that through a kind of class structure of low pay, debt accumulation, and the riots in 2011 in August when everyone just went and looted loads of stuff and a kind of like unsanctioned shopping experience, and all those, like advertising actually sits at the confluence of all those issues. Me and a friend set up brand living 8 years ago. And I suppose we wanted to try and embed some of the critiques that were being raised by brandalism about advertising, but we wanted to try and like institutionalise them at a local level and try and make Bristol the first city to go advertising free. Ultimately it's about reimagining urban space, and what would be great is to try and operationalise the right to the city concept in talking about advertising. It's quite hard because you have to kind of explain what the right to the city is, but it's like in taking down billboards there's a desire to remove the means by which like consumer capitalism shapes public space and public desires around the logic of capitalism. And the right to the city is about the ability to remake the city and have access to the various resources of the city, and in remaking the city kind of reshape ourselves, or something that's slightly complicated concept as it is. So like you take down these ads which are part of the visual realm, and you remove the tool of capitalism to shape our priorities, and in their place you can put community murals, changing street art, rewilded green spaces, small parks or community gardens or whatever. You can do lots of things that become available when you
Hello, sorry. Hi.
That's right. Is that any better?
Slightly, yeah. I think that's good. Yeah.
I guess I've got a history of activism from my 20s. Some of it's about what you want, like how I actually want to spend my personal time. I mean, when I was younger, I spent 6 years working in Bosnia. Yeah, the human rights work I did and the cross-community arts work, which spanned about 3 years, was really, really intense. Like working in different language, not being at home, trying to create your own sort of social group and, domestic kind of base, as well as, being surrounded by mines, being surrounded by destroyed buildings, being sort of verbally attacked by people, threatened by people, threatened by police, and having people you're working with sort of arrested and taken away. It's all really stressful. Okay. But I suppose that maybe that with the Bosnian work, I mean, I talk about that because it's probably the most intensive bit of activism.
Yeah.
Moving through different formats of working, and actually the one I found the most satisfying but also effective for achieving what I wanted was doing artwork. So meeting together with people to do art projects, and it was a cross-community project, so over a former front line, and integrating people from different identities who were separated through the war.
Sure.
So it was a really political, the aim, and it was quite clearly presented as that, but the process was much more gentle and creative and had different flavour to it than, say, campaign work or direct action.
Yeah.
So it's, I think sometimes it's about finding the kind of flavour of working that works for you. Yeah. And sustainable.
Yeah. And why was it that art was so effective in that context, do you think, or so helpful?
I think because it was, you could take it, it's really broad, it's a broad invitation. Yeah. So even just getting involved was a political act, and then the content of it could be quite indirect. So say we did a project that was about waste collection and recycling, because the recycling systems in the town had broken down, and because it was a divided town, there was 2 sets of administration to deal with it. So in some ways, you're still talking about the fact it's divided and the fact that the administration doesn't work, and the fact that streets have been trashed, literally, whereas you've all got these falling down buildings and shot at buildings, as well as all the rubbish not being. So it all reflects onto the political situation that's bigger than just rubbish, or about recycling and about ecological destruction, but it much sort of root into it, and we were making sculptures that tried to make points about that. So maybe the process, so you start building groups and people start feeling like they're personally building confidence and growing away from some of the traumatic experiences and feeling empowered, and that they can present themselves in public and all of this sort of stuff that's kind of softer, but actually these are people that they were between 16 and 23. They're people that were heavily traumatized through the war, and then are growing up to be adults that were going to take on the administration of the city. So I mean, I guess it just depends. That's why I say you have to find yourself on where you want to pitch yourself.
Yeah. So is art quite an important aspect for you then? Quite a big challenge?
I don't know, it's always been an important part of my life, and so trying to make that part of how I approach other stuff is it's important.
Yeah. What kind of art do you do?
I occasionally go out and do like big pieces on the streets, but not as much as I'd like. Yeah. It's kind of the work I do with the PRSE, the People's Republic of States Cottage, tends to be big slogans painted in rollers. Okay, so it's really just in your face that it's not so much arty, but it's...
The PRSE, is that big wall on like Jamaica Street?
Yeah. So that's our wall, and the China shop on one end of that is the the Stokes Croft China that sells is the main way the PRSE is funded.
Okay.
And all the profit goes towards doing all the cool, fun, like political, I don't know, other stuff that we do.
Oh, that's cool.
Like, or supporting like the street survival stuff that we're doing with the homeless and stuff like that. So.
Oh yeah. What's that?
So we started at the beginning of this winter, like a Tuesday afternoon drop-in, and the idea was essentially it would be like there are a lot of people that we know, and there are a lot of people on the streets who have a huge amount of experience of surviving on the streets, like especially as it gets like horrible and cold over winter and stuff. Yeah. And trying to provide a space for people to share that knowledge, especially with people who are new to living rough, sleeping rough, and also provide somewhere where people can exchange wet blankets and sleeping bags for dry ones.
Okay.
And we've been distributing like sleeping bags and tents and coats and blankets. The kind of the advicey bit hasn't quite played out in the same way, but we've got people from who come quite regularly from Bristol Housing Action Movement, who are like a squatting support group, and they're quite useful and have like lots of more on the ground knowledge than we do, and so we can provide the space and some people and the space for storing all this stuff and swapping it around and things as well.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, it's quite good.
Your interview questions are quite like expansive and
lateral. Because I mean, I'm interested in seeing where it might go. I don't want it to be like kind of my direction is the only narrative involved. I'd quite like to get a few narratives going.
I can just keep talking.
So squatting was something I did for about 8 years. People who are squatting, there's like quite a variety of people who do this, but some of them it's like really not possible to house themselves in other ways. It's like council housing waiting list is too long. Some people like cannot access that anyway if they are like migrants or whatever. It can be really hard and brutal, and it's not the most ideal situation to be in. And squatting offers an alternative that can in a lot of ways be really healthy. You can end up living with a lot of people and build community, which becomes very tight. Also been involved with like environmental movements. I've been living on protest sites for some time.
What kind of places?
I lived in France in the ZAD. Have you heard of this place? It's a huge, biggest occupation in Europe, like land occupation to stop airport being built just outside of Nantes, about 30 kilometers to the north. And I lived there for like a few months one summer.
How was that?
It was amazing. It was like the most amazing time in my life. I was living in a treehouse, huge treehouse. It had a burner in it, so you could have your fires.
A burner in a treehouse?
Yeah. Pretty cool. And like it was massive as well. You could like sleep 10 people up there. Like 2 or 3 years ago, they announced they're not going to build the airport.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
I had done tree demonstration stuff in Britain, and I don't know if I found it that satisfying. I mean, it might be a good way to achieve a goal, but it wasn't sustainable, I think, because I didn't really enjoy it that much.
Sure.
But it's scared of heights, so I enjoy sleeping up in a treehouse that was 20 foot off the ground that I'd made.
Wait, so say again. So these were treehouse demonstrations?
Yeah, but in the 90s, so probably about 95, there was, and they're doing it again actually now, to stop big roads being built through wooded areas.
Oh wow.
People would occupy trees, so it meant that you would have to be in the trees so that they'd kind of had to evict you.
Sure.
So there was a whole legal process which slowed the whole deforesting down, because they would have to get certain papers to evict you, and then they'd have to physically get you out. So there's lots of people locking themselves on at sort of 30 foot up these trees. But so lots of people built, I mean, hundreds of people actually. It was a really big demonstration at Newbury to the east. But lots of people were living in the trees off ground, so you couldn't get them very easily either. And would have to do cherry pick.
Oh wow!
Because and literally just extract trees. Yeah, so it was quite a full-on thing. But like I said, I'd just come back from Bosnia when I did that, so it was just after the war had finished. So maybe it wasn't in a great state doing that, but it was, maybe just not my route.
Cool. So are you a doctor?
Yes, I'm a doctor. Yeah.
Okay, at the BRI?
At the children's.
Okay, sure. And you're involved in MedAct. Would you be able to explain some of the changes that have happened with migrant charges over the past few years?
Yes, I'm not an absolute expert on it, I have to say, but I can tell you what I know, which is that, so I think it was about 3 years ago, essentially kind of part of a series of policies that kind of returned to the hostile environment to try and make life more difficult from our perspective for kind of asylum seekers and refugees and undocumented migrants. And part of that was charging them for healthcare. So if they present to healthcare, a lot of people who are kind of classed as overseas visitors would receive a letter demanding payment. And we're concerned that, people are receiving those letters, which are quite threatening. So we've seen examples of them, and they're, quite heavy-handed, really intimidating. That people are receiving those who shouldn't be receiving them, or that actually doctors' concerns over whether a patient should be charged or shouldn't be charged is kind of preventing care, when actually we feel that the care should be provided and the finance sorted out, resolved later. We're worried that it's stopping migrants presenting for care in the first place. Another thing which has kind of come up in the last year is the airport expansion as well. That obviously was the planning meeting to decide on that was on February the 10th, so last Monday. So in the months in the run up to that, we've been kind of opposing, making sure, campaigning for opposition to that. Again, taking part in the public consultation and kind of essentially applying kind of pressure from the health perspective of why. And that was, about air pollution, but also about noise pollution, and also about the kind of global impacts of climate change of that many extra flights, which may not be felt in Bristol quite as much as in other places, but it's massively damaging to global health, obviously, kind of general climate change. So we opposed that, and then we were really pleased that got rejected.
That was amazing.